Hi, I'm Hugh Sullivan, videographer for the Herald and Review, and for the last several episodes, I've been talking about art and being creative, just kind of in general terms. And so today I'm going to switch gears and talk about working in journalism, and I'm also kind of switching gears because this one's going to be a little bit of a downer. So I'm sorry about that. And it's also, since it's more serious and it's more of a serious subject, I'm trying to kind of stay on point, so it's not going to be as stream of consciousness as my other ones go. So I'm going to try not to ramble as much. So that means there might be some more hard cuts in here as I edit myself a little bit. So just bear with me because I think it's an interesting subject, and it's something that I think about a lot when I'm working for the newspaper. I love my job. It's a lot of fun, but it doesn't mean that there aren't challenges and difficult days. The other day, I was at the gas station just going to get some donuts, and I saw the cover of USA Today, and I saw a photo that bothered me. And it wasn't the photo itself that disturbed me. It was the idea of someone having to take that photo. The story was about children who are affected by mass shootings. And so the photo was kind of one of the more common images used with the Sandy Hook story. So you probably recognize this photo if you were following any of that coverage. It's Carly Soto, and this is the moment where she's finding out that her sister was one of the teachers killed during the shooting at Sandy Hook. I understand the need for photographers to share these images with the world and show the impact of these kinds of events. I understand that there's a place for that kind of photography and the importance of it, but when I see those photos, it just kind of reminds me that I'm not the person to take those photos. I'm an empathizer. My mood is greatly affected by people around me and by the moods of people around me or the tone of events that I'm at. And a lot of times I consider that something that's a strength of mine. I can use that to my advantage, and I think I do better work because I'm in a certain rhythm with my surroundings when I'm out shooting. But when it comes to moments of tragedy, I don't think I could be the one to press the shutter, because in a moment like that, you have to be creative. While you're taking that photo, you're not looking down and saying, okay, well, let me just snap a few shots. You've got to be looking at the scene like it was anything else, like it was a sunset on a beach, saying, okay, what's the best lighting for this? What's the best background? Oh, the background's too busy. Oh, this is, there's a weird shadow on that. You've got to be looking at it in creative terms while somebody's grieving. And that just, it blows my mind. And I understand it, but I don't know if I could do that. And I'm not saying that the photographer is heartless or cold. I'm just saying that people who are more experienced in that and more efficient at that, they're able to control their emotions and just must be able to kind of shut it off to get the job done, because I just can't imagine scrolling through all the photos that were taken in that one shot at Sandy Hook looking for the best frame. Because, that's what they had to do. Any photographer will tell you they're snapping, they're rapid firing, especially in spot news like that where there's a lot happening. You're rapid firing. Most photographers have their shutter. Well, they'll just hit the button and it'll rattle off 10 frames. And so you need to go clicking through there. And even though this is a horrible moment in someone's life, you need to be looking at it saying, okay, which is the best photo to submit for print? The girl in the photo, Carly Soto, said that picture captured the worst moment in her life when she found out her sister was dead. And in an interview with CBS, she said, it's like a reminder of that moment all over again. It kills. And that's another thing that I don't think I could deal with, is having to face that person after I look up from the camera. Video or photo, I don't think I could, take a picture like that and then have to be face to face with that person when they know that I just took a picture of the worst moment in their life. Now, I'm pretty lucky. In Decatur, usually the news is pretty light. I go to a lot of school events. I go to the zoo all the time. I'm covering, when we have new animals at the zoo and babies, and I get to go in the cage with the wolves, and I get to cover a lot of sports. So it's usually pretty light, but that doesn't mean that I've never had to cover tragedy. I use an app on my phone called Time Hop, and if you're a nostalgic person, I highly recommend downloading it. It will give you pretty much all of your social media posts over the past few years every day. So it'll say, this is what you were doing a year ago. Here's what you were doing 2 years ago, and so forth. It's usually pretty fun, but the same day that I saw that USA Today cover, I got a reminder of what was probably the worst day I've ever had at the paper and the worst assignment I've ever had to cover. In 2010, there was a plane crash just outside the Decatur airport, and that's all we knew. That's the only information we had, so they sent a reporter, a photographer, and me out to go see what was going on. By the time I got there, there were police and emergency vehicles diverting everybody to the Decatur Airport terminal, and they said, just wait for instructions when you get there. We're going to have a press conference once we get all of our information straight. When I showed up, there was only one other person there. It was a cameraman from a local TV station and a friend of mine that I've shot alongside for a long time. So we set our cameras up in the terminal and just kind of had them set aside, and we just kind of chatted for a while, waiting for things to get started. And then a woman came bursting through the doors looking for the main office, and as soon as she made it into the office down the hall, we could tell that she was getting the news that a relative had died in the crash. We could hear her crying and a lot of commotion, and we felt terrible just being there, and we weren't even in the same room, but it was something that I didn't want to be a part of. And then she came out into the hallway to make some phone calls and notify other family members that there was a tragedy in the family, and she turned to see us. Now, we, A, didn't know what was going on until that moment, and B, we didn't have our cameras on. They weren't even pointed in her direction. But she didn't know that. All she knew was that as soon as she came out of that room after hearing terrible, terrible news, there were 2 cameras out in the hallway, maybe waiting for her, she thought. And so, understandably, she freaked out. She was yelling at us, swearing and yelling into the manager's office to get rid of us. And so we just kind of hung our heads and grabbed our equipment and went around the corner to get out of her way so we weren't bothering her. And the whole experience just left me feeling dirty. Even though I had done nothing wrong, it still just bothered me to know that I had added to the grief that this person was already feeling. I had just added another negative part to her day that was already going terrible. So I have a lot of respect for journalists who can put that emotion aside to get the job done and share those images with the world, because I think it's important for people to see those kinds of things, because I know as a visual person, when I read a story about war or about some other kind of tragedy, I understand it, but when I see a photo, it'll make my stomach turn, and I'm like, why did I look at that photo? But I realized that had a pretty big impact on me, and maybe now I understand just how bad it was. When flipping through the story, I just thought, oh, that's really bad. That's bad news. So I have a lot of respect for the people who have the stomach to bring those images and bring that video, bring any of that to the rest of the world, because I'm not the one to do it. As for me, I would rather just stick around here and hang out with the wolves at Scoville Zoo, or go meet some of the eagles over at the Illinois Raptor Center. That's what I enjoy about my job, and so while I'm prepared to do the other stuff, I'd much rather be covering sports and animals. So thanks for watching. Sorry for the downer. Subscribe to this channel. Go check out my personal channel where I do some of my fun and more lighthearted stuff, and check back every week where I talk about my experiences behind the camera.